Alright, so we're back working on our 300. Today what we're going to do is tackle the project of the oil pan gasket. Now, it's not a hard job, but it's just getting to it that's very difficult. For this process, we're going to have to do quite a bit of work. It involves dropping the power steering link and also unbolting the motor mounts, jacking up the motor, just so we have enough clearance to pull that pan down. So, gonna get the car up on jack stands and get started. Here we go. Right, so here we are under the car. Here's the oil pan. You can tell it's been leaking from the gasket. It's kind of all over the place. We're gonna remove the power steering linkage right here. This entire thing here goes to both sides. There are two bolts. There's one right here and one on the opposite side right there, and this should just come down for us. It'll just hang here, and then after that the motor mounts, the bolts, there's one right here and then one right there. We'll unloosen those and be able to jack up the motor, so we'll have the clearance that we need to remove the pan. I'm gonna move on to the left side, and I'm gonna leave the bolt in right there. I'm not gonna knock it out quite yet, just so it doesn't fall on me, but this part is loose, so I'm gonna move on to this side and unbolt this. There's an 18mm nut on one end, and on the other side is 15mm socket. I'm using the ratchet with. Alright, so I tried removing the bolts right here to the motor mounts, and those suckers are on there real good, so put a little bit of breakaway spray on there and just gonna wait for a little bit. But in the meantime, I thought I'd go ahead and drain the oil from the pan, since I got to pull it anyways. So just gonna let that finish draining. I already pulled the filter, and by the time that this is done dripping, we should be able to take another crack at those bolts.
Now with the engine bolts off, we can now jack up the engine. But before that, we're going to have to drop the steering linkage.
Okay. Okay, go to the next one. Alright everyone, so you can see our steering linkage is down right here, and we've used a 2x4 and a floor jack to raise the engine up.
Alright, so we've jacked up the motor as high as we could because of this bar. Alright, now with our bolts out, we can now free the oil pan.
There's this strut bar here that goes from side to side, held on by two 13mm bolts. Went ahead and removed those, and I'm gonna try jacking up the motor a little more, see if we can get some more clearance here. Hopefully we got what we need there. Jacked it up a few inches, so maybe that'll be enough. Alright, so finally we got that pan off, and Joe is wiping it out. Alright guys, so upon cleaning the oil pan, unfortunately we found some broken plastic pieces and these metal pieces as well. Not entirely sure what the metal pieces belong to, but we did find these plastic pieces, and after a little bit of research and talking to the guy at the parts store, turns out that this is the tensioner to the timing chain. So yeah, that it sucks, but it's got to get done, and we want to do this right. So we will be taking off all the accessories here on the front of the motor. That includes the water pump, all the pulleys, AC compressor, alternator, all that to get to our timing chain cover, pull that off, do a timing chain job just while we're there anyways, and probably throw in a new water pump while we're at it. So what started out just as a oil pan gasket has now turned into a much larger job, but in the end it's going to be all worth it. This car does have 270,000 miles on 5.7 Hemi. First thing I did here was remove the intake there. Opened up the petcock valve on the radiator. I'm going to drain that radiator so I can get all these hoses disconnected. Way more than I wanted to do, but I think I'll change this serpentine belt here. It doesn't look too bad, but looks like we had a little coolant leak and a little bit of oil seeping here somewhere as well, or maybe that's just power steering fluid, but I guess we'll find out. Alright, so we removed that top and bottom radiator hose. Now it's time to undo all these bolts around the water pump. It's a 1/2-inch socket. Now the bolts on the water pump here are different lengths, so what I've been doing is just marking the water pump there where the bolts goes, and then I've also been marking these. I don't know if I'm just being too anal about this, but I really don't want to mess this up, so this helps me. So next we remove this tensioner pulley here. Tensioner pulley is a 15 millimeter. And we have to remove this tensioner in order to get this bolt out, because the head of the bolt just hits this, so yeah, it's got to come out anyways. Alright, so finally we have all our bolts out, and here is our mess of the water pump. It looks pretty gunked up right there. Don't know what that stuff is, but alright, we're going to keep going, remove this, and start removing some of the accessories right here, like the alternator bracket, so we can start removing the timing chain cover. So again, for the sake of not losing anything, I went ahead and placed all the bolts where they came from. And I just slightly screwed this tensioner back on there. Tensioner seems to be okay. Even the water pump itself seems to be okay. It's not making any loud noises or anything like that. So I don't know, we'll see if I end up replacing it too or not. Alright, so we went ahead and removed the dual fans to give us a little more room. And that's going to be a lot more clearance to do this timing chain job and be able to pull all these accessories without smashing my fingers. So here we have our engine almost apart. We have a socket there to unloosen that bottom pulley. Alright, so finally we are here at our timing belt. We're about to remove it. We've already removed this bolt that goes right here. And we have our number one cylinder at the we have it at the top center position. And the way we did this was we took this extension here and we removed a spark plug and we placed it all the way down and kept turning the motor until it was at its highest point. Piston number one was at its highest point, and we made a mark with a Sharpie here. So that's how we know piston number one is in the top dead center position. So then like that we can go ahead and remove this timing chain and get our new one put back on. Alright, so now Joe is removing the bolts to the plate where the tensioner rides for the timing chain. Sweet. Here's that old plate now that we take it out of the car, and you can see the chain had completely cut that off, and those are those metal pieces we found inside the oil pan. Right here we have our new plate with the tensioners, and that's the key way that that pin, we're not going to pull it out until the timing chain is in place. And get the other ones in. You got the other one in your hand? You guys can say you've done a timing chain on a 300C Hemi. You so strong.
This is our brand new Mopar timing chain.
Alright, so with all our timing marks in place, now it's time to go ahead and throw in the new timing chain. Alright, so we finally have our timing chain. Everything's in place here. And we decided to put in a brand new oil pump since we're all the way into this. And since you have to take off so much, might as well throw in a brand new part. That's a brand new oil pump there, and now it's time for us to put the timing cover back on. I put in a couple paper towels here, and then I was cleaning off the surface of where the gasket sits as best as possible here. And then here is our original timing chain cover, and you can see that it's all eaten up and chewed up right there. So we're not going to be using this one. It really had, it's really chewed up, and I really don't want to use that and have some leaks or something like that. So I was able to source a new one from a local junkyard here, and this one is actually off of a 5.7 liter Grand Cherokee, same year, and it was interchangeable. So I'm going to be putting this one back on. This one looks a lot better. It doesn't have any of that pitting, and apparently what that happens from is from using tap water when you fill the coolant. They say you shouldn't use tap water, you should use distilled water, because the minerals in tap water will eat up the aluminum. So we're learning as we're going here, because I did not know that, and I've been using tap water in all my cars forever, except that one.
We put a brand new gasket on our timing cover. Now we're going to install our timing cover. Now we're bolting up our timing chain cover.
Alright, now with our timing chain cover back on, we went ahead and put our alternator back on. There are 2 bolts that hold the AC compressor in place. Those got to go back on. I think at this time we're going to go ahead and put on the lower pulley and hopefully get this put back together today. Alright guys, so in order to put on this harmonic balancer, we cannot use the same kit that we rented from Advanced Auto Parts. Unfortunately, there is a different kit that we had to go rent, and we had to find it at AutoZone. So this is the kit right here, 27306, and this has these longer bolts. These two, this one's for GM, these 2 are for Dodge, Jeep, and then this one is for Ford. But this will actually thread in where you need it to, because the bolts from the other kit were not long enough. Slowly but surely she'll get there. We put a little bit of grease right here on this, so it'll slide right in with that new gasket in front. It's almost there. And this one has no keyway. This one, usually they have a keyway so you don't, it's because that's what spins the crank, but this one just gets pressed on. I think that might have been it. Yep, turn the crank, so good. So now we're going to back this up. And we're going to remove our bolt here. Alright, so this bolt right here will go on now, and it gets tightened to 130 foot-pounds of torque. We're going to install a brand new water pump as well, so we had to take off this pulley from the old one. And our other water pump was still good. It was spinning fine. The car wasn't overheating, but since we're over here doing all this work already, it's much easier to just put in a new water pump. We really don't know what the last time it was done. So just like we did with our old water pump, we actually labeled and marked where the bolts go. So we have the head of the bolts marked, and I took video before I turned the core in at the parts store. So I went through that video real quick and went ahead and marked all my bolts, because they are different lengths, so it's important. Alright, so we have our torque wrench, and for the water pump, it calls for 360 inches of torque. Hold the bottom of the wrench too, son, so it doesn't fly away on you. Not like that. Okay, I'll continue it. You gotta listen out for that click. There's our click. So we're good there. I'll pull this one over here. Ready? All right.
Now we install the tensioner pulley. I think it came off.
All right, everybody. So with the serpentine belt now installed, now we can tackle the original issue that we started this whole project. We're gonna put on our new oil pan gasket, get the oil pan installed. I'm gonna put a little bit of the Permatex gasket maker right here at the joints, these two joints right here, and then the ones further back, right here. Nice thing about that gasket maker, it'll help hold the new gasket in place for us while we place the new pan on, while we place the pan back on. In order to do this, as I mentioned before, you do have to jack up the motor. So what we've done is I have a 2x4 right here of a floor jack, and I moved these two power steering lines. I unbolted them. They go right here on the top of the motor mount plate. Just a little 10 millimeter bolt. And I took it off and I put it back on here upside down so I won't forget to put it back on or lose the bolt. But these lines right here sit over here, and I don't want to jack up the motor from anywhere else. And the best place that I found was to jack it up on the motor mount itself there. So there's the 2x4 up against the motor mount. Here's the brand new gasket straight from Mopar. Alright, we're also installing a brand new thermostat since we don't know how old the other one is. Already cleaned off the inlet tube real good with a wire wheel. Alright, so before installing our gasket, went ahead and put a little bit of RTV here on these cross points. And it's just this stuff right here. Alright, we've installed our pickup tube now. Cleaned it out real good, didn't find any debris inside it. There's a new gasket that came with that oil pump. So that's all good. Put a little bit of RTV right there. We're about to put the pan up. I left it like this, bolted for about an hour, just so it'll stick and it'll hold the pan up for me. So I'm gonna take these 10mm bolts out. I have one on each corner for now. I'm gonna pull those now so I can go ahead and put the pan in, and hopefully it'll hold it for me.
Now we're going to put in fresh oil.
Slowly. Slowly. Yep, let it go down. Alright, so it's the first time starting it since we put in the new timing chain. So, Joe, go ahead and give it a start. Alright, everything sounds good. Right off. Alright, so we started it just for a few seconds. We're not going to run it long because obviously the coolant and everything's not in it yet. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now we are installing our radiator. So we can get our coolant system in there and then make sure that our water pump is okay, not leaking or nothing. So this is a tight squeeze in here, but we'll get it. Now we're filling the coolant. Trying to make sure that we have no leaks. So far it's okay. A little bit of a process here. Got to run the car on the heat on low and let it burp out, do its thing, and we keep refilling it. Like I said, so far no leaks out of the water pump or any.
Alright, we're all done for today. We're going to go ahead and take it for a cruise.
Alright, so we just got back from driving it and it runs amazing.
That's going to be a wrap for working on a Chrysler 300C. Special thanks to our friend Albie for helping us out with this project. Stay tuned for part 3. Make sure you like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you'll never miss a video. Peace.